Hello and welcome to episode 19 of Bondcember. Today we'll be talking about the first of the two Timothy Dalton films, The Living Daylights. I am Tom.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And that was some aha. So
Aha.
yeah, again, it's a good theme song, and
Yeah.
this time it's attached to a good movie.
It's. I would put it in good. Although the fun thing about that theme song is, this is where John Barry kind of leaves the James Bond franchise, and part of it is because he needed to have surgery on the throat. Reasonable. Another part of it is he had creative differences with Aha.
Yeah.
Over the theme song.
The band
exactly how it was.
The band disband in the 1980s basically had a feud with him because. Why did they have a feud with him, Joe?
Okay, they had a feud with him because they went into their string section and fixed a chord.
Not a chord.
And this is how we want this chord to go. So they fixed it, and then John Barry was furious at them. And then it just kind of went to there. And then after that, no more John Barry James Bond scores.
Well done, aha. Yeah, and it's like, to this day, like, the Aha have put their preferred version of The Living Daylights, which is a good song.
Yeah, it is. Song. And the thing is, if I've heard the preferred version and John Barry's version, I can't tell the difference.
Yeah, I think it is literally that fixed chord. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Morton Harkett. Sorry, Morton Harkett, I have mangled your name. Was offered a small role as a henchman. Yeah.
Well, he turned it down.
I
don't know how it would feel like if I saw him in this. It would just. I think it would be out of place. Like if he was in, say A View to a Kill, fine. That movie had like so many ill-fitting spots.
Yeah,
but
I'm surprised they didn't try and put Duran in A View to a Kill at this point. I mean, it's like
Although I look at Simon Le Bon in the music video for A View to a Kill, he looks shockingly young.
Yeah, like Morton Harkton at that point was a very pretty. You know what Aha look. You've seen the video for Take on Me. Yeah, they are too pretty to be like.
He is a very pretty man, and I am very envious of that.
Yeah, so the plot of this time is, well, guess what? It's the Russians again.
Yeah, this is getting back to John Glenn making a very normal-ass movie. I say that like, in this case, like it's supposed to be but it is like, if this wasn't a James Bond movie, if this was, you could easily see it having another title.
Oh god, yeah. It is very much. And Glenn's style is very much, sort of. I hesitate to call Glenn's style workman. Like, it is very much sort of, you want to introduce a new Bond. And I mean, I think Glenn does pretty much every introduction. Does he do? Because he definitely did. He did Casino Royale, didn't he?
John Glenn, no, that's later on. That's
Oh.
Okay. Oh goodness, the guy who did Goldeneye. I lost his name for a second.
But Glenn's style,
the guy Ryan Reynolds hates.
Yeah, but Glenn's style is very, it's very workmanlike. It's very much sort of, it goes, it tells its story, it moves smartly from place to place, the gadgets are worked out, the plots are fairly, trim and, have a momentum to them.
What stands out is not the style. What stands out is what they are doing.
Yeah.
Like in the Golden Gate sequence, like they're actually at the Golden Gate and falling, or in the plane sequence where it's just like, that is very visibly two people on the top of a plane. And, that kind of thing. Those are the most... it is not, how the movies are assembled so much. I mean, although editing definitely plays a part, and he does a good job editing, even though, like, he has a certain time he wants to get out of the movie, and that is 2 hours and 10 minutes, which is every movie in the John Glenn Bond saga, if you could call it a saga.
Yeah,
it's
are pretty much.
They're within 5 minutes of 10 to 10.
to 10, give or take. And it's like,
But
yeah, he basically knows how to make a Bond film that, you know, 35, 50, 40 million, punch in, get somebody relatively well known as the villain, have a decent actress as the Bond girl, get me a reasonably well known band, done, gone.
yep,
It's a very, it's a very workman-like style, and I think this is definitely
yeah.
one of his best.
Yeah, although it is also like the most workmanlike, I
Oh
feel
god,
like,
yeah,
because it is like there are a couple things that stand out about the movie, and we'll get there, but it's just like the movie just goes, and you just go along with it, and it's probably one of the most plot centric ones. It does have its action sequences. It does have some things here and there, but it is the most stick to business Bond movie in his repertoire.
Oh yes, absolutely. It is very, and again, it is actually. I will say this about Glenn's films. Glenn's films never feel long. I mean, 2 hours and 10 minutes is the late 80s, the late 80s at this point. A decently long film. That's not a shortish film. This is before obviously every film was 3 hours long. And it's it's a solidly made film, but it never he goes very, very. I think what I like about Glenn's style, having immersing myself in cinema as I do, is his films have a very nice flow to them. They build to action sequences, but then you get the prerequisite scenes with the love interest and the villains, and it sort of peaks very nicely. You peak with a nice action sequence, then you have a lull, then you peak with a nice action sequence, then you have a lull, then you have a really big action sequence, and the film is done. That's basically how Glenn's films are very much, here is the 3-act structure, put an action scene at the point of each of them, roughly the same point in in each act, have some cool stunts, have some cool stuff happening, great. Yeah.
And this one, I think Dalton is the best actor who could have handled this stuff, because he does handle the stuff in between the action very well. So there's a lot of things you can say about Dalton. I mean, I think what the Dalton films were kind of get overstated between what's there, because this is where Bond is back to being serious. There's no humor there. It's all back to business, and he is, a hardcore. And there is that, and certainly more in License to Kill, as we'll find out. But he does have jokes. I think the only weakness is he can't deliver the ones he knows are bad. Like when he does the title drops, where it's just it's like one of the opening sequences where they're going through a complex sequence where they get this defector for East Germany, or for the Russians out of the eastern part, and get them across the Trans-Siberian pipeline, and there's surprise, the sniper who's trying to kill him is a woman, and then James Bond shoots him and is like, why didn't you kill her? You missed intentionally. And it's like, that woman didn't know the one end of the rifle to another, but whatever it was, it must have scared the living daylights out of her. And there's the title drop, and it's a joke. Yeah. But I don't think Dalton delivers it well, but he does get to have some fun. Like at the end of the opening sequence, he parachutes onto this boat with this woman who is very interested in hey, this handsome man just came onto my boat, and he's like, I'll debrief in an hour. Better make that two.
And that's the thing. I feel like Dalton is basically Connery. I hesitate to say exactly, but it is basically, what if Connery's Bond was brought up in, not in the pre-war period, but basically in the post-war period. There's a little bit more gentility to him. He's definitely not the thug that Connery's Bond is. But but at the same time, he's not, the pleasant sort of, gentleman all the time that, Moore's Bond
Yeah.
is. And I feel he is quite a happy sort of medium between the two of them.
Yeah.
And I think we see that also in Brosnan to a certain extent, but sort of perhaps in the opposite
at
sort
the
of
start for Brosnan,
yeah,
and then eventually they kind of lost whatever they were doing with Brosnan.
Okay.
But we'll
get
there.
to that one. Yeah. So sort of the plot of this is it's quite it's quite an intricate. It's one of another quite intricate plot, but it's sort of basically the defector is found to be actually a he's basically used his defection to bring his enemy into disrepute. From that point, he's also working with an American arms dealer played by Joe Don Baker, who might be like worth the omission of this film alone.
The weirdest person who has shown up in multiple Bond movies, Joe Don Baker, and there's that sheriff, but I don't know. It's the thing is he's like the sheriff, as we'll get into with his character Wade in Goldeneye and elsewhere, but he is like the sheriff in To Live and Let Die and The Man with the Golden Gun if he was actually, a decent character and actually played by a decent... And I'm a Mystery Science Theater 3000 fan. We give a lot of crap to Joe Don Baker for Mitchell and The Final Justice. But, overall, he is a very solid actor who he will, do whatever he can. And he has a very, authentic Southern accent that, it really fits to a character if you tailor the character to him.
Yeah,
and in this case,
he's a lot of fun in this one.
Yeah, and he's this arms dealer who sees himself as one of the great rulers, even though it's like everybody's like, I don't know if you ever served or not. I don't think you did. And he is like this tactics nerd, and he is like, he wants to be this ultimate arms chair general and general, even though he's never been, because he has these busts outside that have himself as Julius Caesar, Hitler, I don't know if Genghis Khan, but probably. All of these world rulers and generals, with Joe Don Baker's face.
It's like, well, that's unnerving. So and then we have the actual villain, who is Georgy Goskov, who is this, who again is solid. He's a fun, he's actually, and again, it's actually probably one of the few times that Bond does a reasonably good, hand at twist villains.
Yeah.
And it's
he has a very memorable henchman who is the milkman killer, and he gets his first great entrance is when they take him back to be being defected, although it's all a ruse. But he disguises himself as a milkman, and then he takes out a few of the guards, and then he disguises his voice as a guard, and then he causes a whole bunch of chaos that causes them to take him back. And that's actually really, really well done, really well acted
really
for
well
somebody who is just mostly there to do the stunts and to look like a baddie. Because he starts out, he would be like Lenny Luthor from Superman 4 if he was British. It's like, all right, mate, man's sick. And then he has to mimic the guard's voice. The outer section is clear. And he does all of this extremely well, and it's a shame he kind of fades into the background until the big sequence at the end, because he's actually really good at being an agent, just being what an actual spy does.
Yeah, and it's again, I feel like this is where Bond starts to go, we'll do this character again, but we'll bring them up to date, because it is very much this is Red Grant again. It's almost like a dark shadow of Bond as a KGB agent.
Yeah,
and his strange addiction to the Pretenders.
Yeah, his strange addiction to the Pretenders because John Barry did not want to put any more aha into the movie than he wanted to.
Oh, we could have got them to do No More Heroes. Shit. Ah.
But yeah, it's very clear John Barry was not very happy with aha by the way they used the song in the movie. Like, it does get a couple things. There are a couple times when it shows up in the score, but most of it, it's like, If There Was a Man by the Pretenders and Where Has Everybody Gone? Those are the two big songs that get used into the score. And this is kind of the introduction to where there's a second theme at the end where we can make twice as much money with two singles.
Put another one on.
And they did that for a while.
Yeah. And there's obviously also John Rhys Davies as Korsov's, essentially is Korsov's sort of, he's the head of the KGB. So he's basically...
he's supposed to be Gogol, but the actor who played him was sick, and this was supposed to be his send-off, and this was supposed to, like, feel like the end of the John Glenn movies were, like, giving all the people who were, like, characters, giving them actual roles, like, as we'll see with Q in License to Kill or something like that, or giving all these side people, like, okay, you're going to have your actual moment to shine here. But that didn't work out because the actor who played him got very sick, and he could only show up for a token cameo at the end. But John Rhys Davies is fine. He is like this guy who has obviously been Bond's adversary, but they have to, like, talk to each other and, like, try to work out what exactly they're both doing and if they're both telling the truth. And there's a lot of good acting scenes in this movie.
Yeah, very much it's sort of like, he has diplomatic immunity now. Remember when I used to remember when we were trying to kill each other, 007? Yes. And then we come to sort of like... So basically, the plot of this is they are trading, weapons for, obviously the Soviets being, heavily into Afghanistan at that sort of point.
Yeah.
Basically, they are trading guns for drugs, and it's all part of a Soviet power struggle between Korsov and Pushkin. And then we go to Afghanistan, and it very much is that sort of...
it is very,
very Rambo 3.
And James Bond literally works with the Mujahideen, and the character he rescues from a Afghanistan prison is very much this same sort of guy, like, who would lead the, Afghanistan government after that.
Oh, yeah.
And, people who were trained with Western educations who then went back and then, like, learned all of this stuff on propaganda and how to, like, take total religious control of your country and how to hate the West even though you were educated there.
Oh, absolutely.
Which these are all issues that are probably way above us that we need to talk about when the living daylight. But
socio-politically, those two films, this and Rambo 3, with their depiction of the Mujahideen as sort of, virtuous freedom fighters against those horrible Soviets, of sort of, this is not aged well.
Not aged well at all.
Aged like
although that's probably not even my biggest complaint about the movie, though, is that it's like the plot kind of leads to nowhere.
It's very much...
to a certain extent. It's like, okay, we're going all these back and forth to... Maybe we're going to do like the Octopussy where there's the militant faction of the Soviets trying to get control and then start shit again with the people in Russia who are like, okay, this is basically over, we need to stop this. But that's not exactly what happens. It turns into a drug deal, and it becomes a very minor plot. All of it is very intricate, and all of this for, essentially a drug deal. It's like, opium for diamonds, and then, all of it gets, flubbernucked by Bond, and then they have an outstanding like final action sequence.
Oh yeah, the showdown,
in the plane.
the showdown in the plane. Like, again, it's a very, very well made film, and the action sequences, as usual, are supremely good. But I feel with this, obviously, it's got to do the heavy lifting of introducing this whole different version of Bond, and again, it feels very, it updates and feels more modern. So it's, you know, considering this is like, you know, a couple of years after, you know, A View to a Kill, it feels far more like a traditional modern action film than, you know, a film 2 years ago.
Yeah, but it doesn't go over the edge like I think License to Kill does, because there's a balancing act in making a modern film and making a Bond film, and I think this film manages to strike the balance, and because it does have more than enough, you know, things. I mean, the only thing is I think it's a minor. It was adapted from a short story, and it absolutely feels like it was adapted from a short story to a certain extent. I mean, I know to this point, James Bond movies just take the title of the books and then do whatever the hell they want.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what they do. But this definitely feels like a short story plot.
Yeah.
And they had to make a big movie around it. And, you know, mostly it's a good movie. It's fine. Like, I didn't want to overuse like Octopussy when I said it was fine, but this movie is the definition of it's fine. It's just fine. Like, Timothy Dalton is really good. They get some very good action sequences, and the plot is very, you know, very intricate, and it's kind of fun to follow until it, you know, turns into like it's a drug deal, and then we have all of these separate elements that are now just hanging threads. Like you have, you know, Yorgi over here, you have the plane with the, you know, drugs and the anti-James Bond over here, and then you have the Joe Don Baker part over here, and they feel like disconnected parts of the movie as it kind of unwinds. And you know, at the end, it's just like there are more parts I remember than like say Never Again, but it's that same thing where everything is, you know, it's fine. They do use like the Eastern European locales a lot better, although it's a lot of, you know, winding cobblestone streets in darkness, but they're shot well, and then they have the snow chase, which I keep forgetting is there, but it's when it's there, it's done well enough, and it's like I get why the director had to like make them, you know, this cello scene where they're going downhill skiing on a cello case.
Yeah. While trying to keep said cello intact because it's a bloody, you know, it's a ridiculous
Stradivarian
it's a ridiculously expensive Stradivarian that's just going merrily bounced along the snow.
And it's like, and the director had to force the scene because they weren't getting it. Like the people were making the film, it's like, why are we doing this? This is silly. But it's like it's the part of it that makes the scene, because I don't know why, but the ski chase in the car is just like the most forgettable part of the movie, and I don't know why. I mean, it's reasonably well done enough. Everything works, but it's just like that part. It's just like it's the most standard of James Bond chase scene, and then they get to the cello part, and that's the part you remember because they go over to this country border, which this would not work nowadays, and I don't think it would have worked in the 80s, where they just go slide across the border, throw the cello up, and it's just like, we have nothing to declare except a cello.
Yeah, I will say this to the film's credit. Yeah, Mariam again, I'm probably going to Dabo is very good. She does feel like a very, you know, she goes from basically being an accomplice to Korskov to this very sort of, you know, slightly confused, because obviously you know, first off, the KGB really would like to speak to her, and secondly, it's like, yeah, I'm now on the run with this complete maniac.
Yeah.
And it's like, what I do like about Dalton's Bond is he is very much more You know, he's a very, you know, more has been very much sort of, you know, you've seen one Moore film, you kind of have got Moore's gist. This is like, this guy is unpredictable. He can very much sort of,
Yeah.
There's a little bit of an edge, as obviously we'll come on to speak
Yeah.
to it about licensing. There is an edge to Dalton's Bond, which I don't think really you have with any Bond that is up to this point.
Yeah. You could imagine he would kill somebody who probably didn't have it coming just to get to a certain effect. You could believe that.
Yeah, so
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, I liked this. I liked this, but I know we're gonna argue a lot about tomorrow's.
Yeah, like it's where I don't really have much to say, and I just yawned because like talking about it is kind of. It's a good movie. I'm fine. It's a 3-star movie. It's fine.
Yes.
I want to move on to the next one.
Some of the elements of it are very, very good. Some of the elements of this are a little bit staid. Yeah, it's another solid Bond movie.
Yep,
it does. It. Yeah. So, but tomorrow we'll be moving on to Timothy Dalton's second and last film, which is altogether a little bit of a more interesting piece of cinema. And I know this one we are going to disagree on. We are talking about License to Kill. We will see
25 films at our first argument.
Well, yeah, so we'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.